Hello everybody and welcome back. I wanted to do a short video on a project that I have been running for quite some time now, and I think I've hit every snag and every pothole there is. So just to level set, I'm trying to use the solar power from my solar installation to charge a battery because I have a certain degree of overproduction and I want to use that energy at night. So I'm charging batteries and I'm discharging the batteries overnight to power my appliances. And every installation and every part that I have here is the same. I mean, even this little garden light has the same components. It's got the solar cell, it's got some sort of charge circuitry, and it has a boost converter to power the LEDs. It's all the same. I mean, even the Blue Yeti here, which has an MPPT charge controller, doesn't do anything different. It makes sure that it charges the battery, it keeps the battery alive, and when you plug something in, it discharges the battery and raises the battery voltage to the level that you need. It's all the same, even if you're doing it on something like a house. But in my case, I tried to go the cheap way. So I went out and I didn't use any LiPo batteries or LiFePO batteries. I decided to go with lead acid, and lead acid comes with its own quirks. A lead acid battery like this one, this is from a motorcycle. These batteries are way different than these batteries. A lithium battery will happily charge and discharge and remain at any charge in between. A lead acid battery, on the other hand, is only happy when it's charged up to the brim. And you really need to make sure that each and every time you discharge them, you charge them back up again really, really quickly, because if they're not charged to 100%, they break. And that is super annoying. They can have extremely short lifetimes, like less than 100 charge cycles if you do it wrong. If you do it right, on the other hand, then they can have an extremely long lifetime. I'll show you what my installation looks like. Okay, so here is my setup. I have 4 12-volt gel batteries. Each of these batteries has 120 amp hours at C100. I'll go into that in a minute. They're in series, so I have a 48-volt system, and attached to that I have a grid tie power inverter, which steps the 48 volts up to 220, so I can feed them into my home grid. And I have a lead acid battery charger from Meanwell, and I'll go into that one in detail because this was really expensive, but it's worth it. Also, I have a battery equalizer, and this is one of the first snags that I hit. No matter what I did, I couldn't keep these batteries balanced. They would go out of balance, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to overcharge them, and you don't want to over discharge them. Regarding the batteries, this is actually the third order that I placed for batteries, and I was actually scammed twice. Most of the time when I ordered deep cycle batteries. I just got car batteries and they are not deep cycle capable. So if you go out and buy lead acid batteries for your home because you want to use lead acid batteries instead of LiFePO, for whatever reason you may have, make sure that they are deep cycle capable and request a data sheet, because you're going to need it pretty soon when you're starting to do the calculations for charge times and discharge times and stuff like that. I actually got in touch with this company, Vega Power, and they're in Germany, and these batteries are absolutely excellent and their service is absolutely excellent. They gave me super advice. They were very forthcoming. I'm really happy that I got these, and so far the batteries have been holding up very well too. Okay, let's get into the C100 rating. So if you get batteries that have something like this, 12 volts, 120 amp hours, C100. This means that they will have 120 amp hours if you discharge them over 100 hours. And I'm definitely not going to do that. I've actually planned this system with a discharge current of 10.5 amps, which is C10. And at C10, the overall capacity of the battery goes down because you have losses inside the battery, and you need to calculate for them, because if you discharge with too much current and you discharge too deep, you will be hurting the battery and you won't be getting the full number of guaranteed battery cycles. For this battery, the rated discharge at 25% state of discharge, which means you've taken 25% of the charge inside the battery, is between 800 and something below that. But 800 is the rated value, and if you discharge them to 80% state of discharge, that means that only 20% is left inside the battery, you will still be getting 300 cycles, which is very good for a battery like this. These batteries are usually used for machines, forklifts, cranes, stuff like that. And like I said, I got a very comprehensive data sheet with these, and I'm really happy with that. The only thing that I have been having a problem with was getting them balanced while they're new, because especially when they're either very new or very old, the values that you see on here may differ vastly, but over time they kind of run in, and all of that becomes better. Now, regarding the power inverter that I got, it was a very cheap unit, but it's been working. It feeds 500 watts into my grid, and that's good enough for me. Regarding the charge controller, let's go back to the desk and have a look at the data sheet for that. Okay, so let's have a look at the battery data sheet first. This is from the things that I got, this is by far the best, because if this information is correct, then this is a very, very good battery. So some of the key features basically are that this battery is supposed to have a 15-year floating design life, which means that it will, if it's always near to full, but with changing charge, it should live 15 years, which is to me quite amazing. I've never gotten that out of any battery. Also, this document tells you exactly at which C value what performance you will be getting. So I know, because I'm discharging it with pretty much exactly C10 or slightly below that, I am getting at least 88 amp hours out of the battery. And from that value, I can calculate my percentage of discharge. Also, further down on the document, you get discharge characteristic for constant current and constant power. This is absolutely super. And the second page gives you very, very detailed information about the charge and discharge cycles, as well as the voltages of the cells at different states of charge. This is really important if you want to find out at what capacity am I right now after discharging it and after running your load for some time, because these values are absolutely spot on. Like I said, this is a super battery. The documents that came with the battery charger, I'm not going to go over them in detail, but there's a whole family of Meanwell battery chargers, and I used the PB600-48 because I have a 48 volt system, and I am using this charger in a 3-phase charge cycle configuration. There's also this thing can do remote control. It has outputs for telling you that it's finished charging, and loads of things that I'm not using right now because I'm still basically learning what I want to do with it. So the important thing for me in these diagrams are the charging curves. I am using a 3-stage charging cycle. Basically, first it's using constant current, then it's using constant voltage, and then it basically floats the voltage down to almost zero. For fully charging the battery, which is something that you want to do with these batteries because you're cycling them so often, this takes a lot of time. And one of the things that I ran into was I never anticipated how long charging would take. I was assuming that a 600 watt charger would take around 4 hours to charge 2 kilowatt hours into the battery. But I was very wrong, because the constant voltage stage of the charge cycle takes extremely long, and the floating stage can be even longer still. So I was trying to use time as a reference for the discharge that I was doing, and I found out that, well, it doesn't really work that way, and you need to consider that charging the battery takes a lot longer than what you were thinking. Now, one thing that the charger can do, which I think is really interesting, is it can revive batteries. It has an 8-stage charge cycle, which is basically designed to bring back batteries and to charge them really, really carefully. And I've seen this done on different batteries, and it can really bring them back to a certain degree, of course. If a battery is broken, it's broken, especially if it's a lead acid battery, because the chemistry just goes bad and you cannot save them. But this is really important because you need to know that lead acid batteries are substantially different from lithium ferrophosphate or lithium ion batteries. A lithium-ion battery is only a problem when you're charging it to 100% or when you're trying to balance it. If you are moving between something like 60% of charge and 20% of charge, then you can basically do that a very large number of times, and you don't really have to watch out for anything going wrong inside the battery as long as it's reasonably balanced. And that is a real difference to lead acid batteries. And like I said, also when you have a system where you have solar power and you want to charge the battery, you need to be aware of the stages in charging. Like, for example, I start charging the battery at, I don't know, like 11 o'clock when I know I have the best solar energy input. And I was expecting to be done at 3 p.m. But as it turns out, I have to run the charger at least 2 hours longer, until 5 p.m. It won't take a lot of power then, but it will still be running. And if I turn it off earlier than that, I will be discharging the batteries further than I would want to. And this is really important. You really have to know the state of your batteries, and you have to make sure that you arrive at a fully charged state each and every time. Now, last but not least, right now I don't have a dedicated controller for charging and discharging the battery. So I don't have a good idea of how much I'm going to take out of the battery and how much I want to, or how long it's going to take me to get it back up to 100%. So my current strategy is I have one timer set for the discharge, and basically this discharges the battery for exactly 4 hours per day cycle. So round about at 9 p.m. it turns on, and it will keep feeding the grid or my house grid up until around 1 p.m. That is usually the time when most kitchen appliances, televisions, computers, stuff is running. For recharging, I'm using a second timer, and I am actually starting the recharge cycle at 11 a.m. when I know that I have basically perfect solar energy, and I am turning it off at around 5:30 p.m. The bulk of the energy that it uses for charging is pulled within the first 4 hours, and then it kind of settles in. I haven't really profiled that yet. In any case, the charging cycle on lead acid batteries is rather inefficient. Even though the charger that I have has a power factor of 9.9 or 99%, and it has a charging efficiency above 75 to 80%. So I am still losing, if I'm doing like 2 kilowatt hours a day, which is at 500 watts, what my grid tie-in inverter can deliver is 4 hours. I may lose up to 400 watt hours, and that is something that I have as solar every day. So if it would be an entirely cloudy day, I would actually be taking energy from the grid that I get from my provider, putting it into the battery, and then I would be feeding it back, which would be inefficient. But this level of inefficiency is always compensated for by the solar energy that I'm getting. So that is okay. on a day when I know that this is not going to work, I can actually turn it off before it discharges overnight, and I will be left with 100% full batteries. But at some point I'm going to automate that with an Arduino or something, and I will just turn the charge and discharge units on and off as I need them. And so finally, how much did I spend? Well, the batteries were around 600 euros. The charge controller and the grid tie inverter both together were around 500 euros. So maybe all in all, I spent somewhere around 1,100 euros for everything. The microcontroller and control circuit and wiring and disconnect switches and the balancer cost another 100 euro. I suppose the rest of the material that I used would probably total to another 100. So maybe I'm in 1,300 euros for the whole installation. I don't think that's really expensive. I would have to see how many cycles I get out of it, but right now what I'm seeing for the charge and discharge cycles, it seems to be working okay, but I don't know. Just time will have to tell. The only thing that I really want to tell people who want to try this is, first of all, get good batteries. Second of all, calculate your system up to the point where you know that it's going to work, because you don't have that much discharge current over a 12-volt battery, so you may need multiple of them so you get a higher voltage, because you can't just discharge them at like 20-30 amps, because you'll just be killing them. Also, if you have a plan for, I don't know, moving or for returning 2 kilowatts to your system, make sure that you have ample time for charging, and also make sure that your charger fits the system. In my case, the charger that I have with 600 watts can push up to 10.8 amps, and that is very much within the capability of the batteries. So make sure you have the right batteries, make sure you have the right charge and discharge circuitry, and in the end make sure that everything is safe, because even with batteries like this, they have insane short circuit amps, and you really need to be careful with that. But I don't know, that goes for each and every high power installation, I guess. Right, so these are the things that I have been stumbling in right now, and I'm still in the process of optimizing the scheduling for charge and discharge. I have to do some more work trying to monitor my own home, so I feed into the grid when I know that I really need it, and I need to find a way to identify days when I'm going to recharge. And I should actually have some sort of weather preview, so I know if the next day is going to be bad, that I don't feed back into the grid, so I don't need to charge again. But those are things for the future. Right now I'm just looking at the timing, and I'm looking at getting good performance from the battery and the inverter. Yeah, I suppose that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and bye-bye.